Alrighty, righty. Wow, we got to get that right the first time, huh? But we kept you waiting.
Who had a drink tonight, Christopher Maz? Who had a drink?
Shush. But anyway, welcome to the latest and greatest from Step Brother Sports, part of the Hockey Podcast Network and the Bills Mafia Buffalo fan base platform. We're episode 87. So make sure. Yeah, we're getting up there real soon. That 100th anniversary 100th episode milestone. So make sure you subscribe to us on our socials on all our platforms. For me at CFMAZ, or for this guy at SV the Don NHL. He's here back to join me again. How about that? Or on YouTube at Step Brother Sports. Don't forget to do all those great engagement functions. Like the video, rate it, give us those 5-star reviews, all those other things you can do to help us grow and get that platform growing. But anyway, folks, the offseason is pretty much for all sports except for World Cup soccer and baseball. It marches on. The Sabres have not done much since our last episode where we had Joe Marino return. Make sure to give that a listen just because it's still quite applicable because the Sabres have not done a whole lot. But the countdown to training camp for the Buffalo Bills is just over 3 weeks away. Most importantly, before we forget, we'd be remiss to say we cannot wait to see everybody next week at Mafia Con when we do our live pod next Saturday. Again, this is on July 18th. So, and the whole event put on by Del Reed and his folks at 26 Shirts, along with so many others, including a friend here who we have with us tonight, and along with his team over at Trainwreck Sports. But we're looking forward to a great time, mingling with Bills fans, seeing all the great Buffalo-themed businesses and groups that are a part of it, catching up with some of the other content creators. It's going to be an awesome time. So come ring in that new Bills season with us, and along with so many others at Mafia Con downtown in Buffalo next week at the Seneca One Tower. So anyway, folks, we're thrilled to have a first-time guest to the show. So he has a heck of a resume, previously covering sports on TV himself. You can also find him on the always entertaining, like we were just saying, Trainwreck Sports platform. He's always on the front lines with his immediate takeaways from the Bills and Sabres home games, as he is regularly in attendance. All of his post-game stuff right when he's in the bleachers or in the stands. So his work is always thorough, and he's extremely well-spoken and knowledgeable. So please welcome to the show, Mike Bundt.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm looking forward to this, and I can't wait to talk some Bills and Sabres.
Yeah, man. Let's get this started. So one thing we always do, Mike, just kind of getting into knowing all the folks that come on the show. We always like to know everybody's origin story, whether it's just getting into sports, maybe they played, maybe they went to school for a certain program or type of field they wanted to get into. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us like your sports history, what got you into covering various teams and for different outlets over time. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, so grew up diehard sports fan, Bills, Sabres, even college basketball in the Buffalo area, college football, all that type of stuff. One day I was early on in high school, and I was like, you know what? How can I stay close to sports as I get older? And it just clicked. Just cover it, and you'll get in for free. So I went to Ohio University for journalism, specialized.
Ohio.
And then after school, started as a news reporter in West Virginia, got a sports anchor job at an NBC station in Ohio, covered Ohio State football. That turned into another sports anchor job in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I covered NBA G League. They had a team called the Mad Ants, a lot of former high-level college players, some guys that made it in the league. They had ECHL hockey, very well-known minor league team that's had a lot of success in the Fort Wayne Comets, and then single A baseball. Eventually took a news job in Rochester at the CBS station. Found out very early on news at that point wasn't the same as sports for me, and then moved on to social media stuff with Cover One and Trainwreck, and have been doing that ever since. But love talking sports. It's really all I ever wanted to do in life was have engagement about the Bills and Sabres, and Trainwreck and Cover One gave me a really good opportunity to grow a base of people and really get my thoughts out there. And I would say one thing about me, for those watching that haven't seen me, is I am not going to just tell you what you want to hear. I am very much against the grain on some things, but if you're willing to hear me out, or at least read out my paragraph tweet sometimes, you'll see that there's a lot of logic to what I have to say, but a lot of times it's not going to be what maybe the popular point of view is in Buffalo.
Right. Yeah, no hive mind thing for you then.
There's plenty of that.
Yeah, I did no hive mind at all. Not to say that I don't agree with people on stuff, but I let's just say I prioritize my opinions more than I prioritize growing my following.
Hey, that's what matters most there. And it's good to have a healthy discourse on that kind of stuff because, again, if you don't have some questioning of the way things are going, then like there has to be like just different trains of thought. Just because we'll get into all that, obviously, because lots to get into with Bills and Sabres news, of course. But we obviously want to talk about the big event coming this weekend. But I know Sean wanted to kind of make a connecting piece as well.
Of course. So whenever we have Mike a new guest for the first time on the show, we like to do a little bit of a degrees of separation segment. So we talked a little bit about your origins before going live. You're a West Seneca boy, which we actually have cousins that went to both East and West. Okay. You're a Franny's guy. One of my best friends from college, a fraternity brother, went to Franny's, and another one of our buddies that went to high school, we were talking about Big John, big Polish guy. He went to St. Franny's as well. He was 07, so a little bit older than you. You're an Ohio Bobcats guy, university, so you're a MAC guy. A team we used to play quite a bit of football in with the NCAA football game. I don't know why. When you're trying to play as UB, when you're trying to find an even match, that was just a team that we'd play with. But from a professional standpoint, I know that you did some interning, I think, on WGR, then also KBW.
Channel 7, WKBW, yeah.
Okay, that's what
GR and Channel 7, yep.
Got you. So we have a bunch of buddies that are with GR now, which we'll probably talk about at some point, previewing Mafia Con. But I also did my intern at the other company in town. I was at WIVB, so I was at Channel 4 around 2010. And similar, like you just mentioned, I wanted to really find my way into the sports, but the avenue in was actually on the news side. So we kind of have that in common too. So funny how similarities, and obviously everybody from Buffalo seems to know other people from Buffalo. So yeah, man, just cool to see the connections we have in common for sure.
Yes. I wouldn't say it's funny because everybody's like Buffalo's a small city. It's not really a small city. I mean,
right.
But if you're in the sports industry or if you have pursued sports reporting or journalism, there's a degree of separation. So somebody knows somebody that knows somebody else. So that's definitely a normal occurrence.
Absolutely. So getting into it, we're hoping are you going to be there? You're going to be at Mafia Con, right?
Unfortunately, I will not be there this year. Now we have Zach Sheldon, Maniac, and then Carson Hayek that's going to be there. I have my normal day job, unfortunately, that day, so I won't be able to attend. But Trainwreck will be well represented. We will have our guys there, and we do have some big stuff coming up soon with Trainwreck, with our podcast, Pay the Bills. We're going to be going through some rebranding, so I don't know if they have any announcements for Mafia Con, but if you guys see them, there could be some changes and upgrades coming.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Last year with Trainwreck, I know they were essential with all they co-hosted it, and they had all the high-end equipment and stuff like that was like way above our pay grade at the moment.
It's crazy. Honestly,
yeah.
So Trainwreck is partnered with Bruckman Media, which is a production company in the Buffalo area. And this is something that's kind of become a thing in the last year and a half, 2 years. So we have a great partnership with them, and they do commercials for a lot of companies in the Buffalo area. So it's one thing that Trainwreck Today was something that they've been producing in a studio, and there's a lot of other creative opportunities that they have opportunities to kind of do stuff with and see what we can do. It's something where we can do stuff that's a little bit different than what your standard Buffalo content creator might be able to do. So still kind of early stages, but something that we're working on to see where we can take it.
Nice.
Hey, it's great to see brands evolve over time too, because like you were saying and alluding to, you don't want to hear the same thing just on different platforms all the time. It's great to have different personalities, of course, but like we were saying before, if you're all thinking collectively the same thing over time, or just having the same message, same shtick almost, or even same sense of humor, that can get real stale for a lot of people, and especially in markets that are really oversaturated. So it's nice to see just refreshing takes on things and just getting, like we said, variety points of view on there. But again, we're really thrilled to be part of Mafia Con. We're grateful that Trainwreck's being able to help out and provide all that they can once more. I've had a little bit of email correspondence, I know, with Zach, just as far as equipment preparation goes for that. One of Sean's close friends, actually, from the Bills will be our special guest, but more on that later. But Sean, was there anything else you wanted to add about Mafia Con?
No, I was just going to say, like, just recapping, like, very honored. I know, Chris, you were. I definitely was, to be welcome back for the second year. From Dell and the rest of the guys there. We had such a great time hanging out with Tim Graham a ton last year.
And I know Patrick Moran, I'm
going to have to pay off my credit card bill to get ready for the tab that inevitably is coming again, because I set the bar pretty high at the level of fun we had when we were done, obviously, with our segment. We were earlier in the day, but great time meeting all the people in the space. I know we have actually at least two special guests that we're going to probably unveil later today. And yeah, we're just really excited to be back in Buffalo and to be part of an amazing event.
Yeah. So with that, we'll go ahead and kind of hash it out as far as Bills and Sabres stuff. With Mafia Con just kind of on the mind, we'll start with the Bills there, Mike. So going into this season, I mean, there's obviously so much that happened. Don't need to rehash every single thing. But just straight up, right off the bat, what do you like about the Bills going to this season? What do you not like about them? I mean, like I said, you could have a gut reaction to how they handled the draft, the promotion for Joe Brady, any of the other coaches, any takes on the free agents, the vibes, et cetera. Just kind of an open-ended Bills question for you. Like, what are your vibes just going into this season?
It's a really weird vibe right now. I feel like this team has as good of a shot of winning a title as any of the past 6 years. But I get the vibe that most of the fan base disagrees with me on that. And I understand why most of the fan base disagrees, but I think they're looking at the wrong things. So for the last 3 years, people have talked about needing to move on from Sean McDermott, wondering if a Sean McDermott defense was ever going to get the job done in the playoffs. And they just have never gotten the job done. I've defended Sean. I've liked Sean. I was a guy that was a proponent of keeping him for a period of time. But year after year after year, the defense falls short. So the one conclusion that you can make is, okay, you gotta change your defensive strategy. Well, the only way you're changing the defensive strategy is by firing him. He's not changing anything if he remains head coach. So you had to fire your head coach. And then the thought was, well, what would you want to be your next head coach? A young, great offensive mind who can work well with Josh Allen, and then somebody that would bring in another defensive guy who has a different scheme that's well thought of, that can bring things together. Now, if I told you that you had an offensive coordinator on any other team in the NFL that 2 years ago had 30.8 points per game, an MVP quarterback, and then the next year a rushing champ, and was only 36 years old, you would say, sign me up for that person in a second. And then they're going to bring in a guy like Jim Leonard, who was an interim head coach at Wisconsin, had 4 top 10 defenses in college football in like 5 years. And you're talking about 130 teams in D1 college football. You'd be like, yeah, this is a great hire. The problem is we've been seeing this guy up close in person for the last 2 years. And when you see things up close, you hyper focus on certain things. Sure. So you're like, why does he run the ball so much? Why do they do wide receiver screens? Well, maybe it's because the receiver weapons have been awful on the team for 2 years. So he's working with a less than perfect arsenal of weapons. And so I look at it like this. Is there going to be a learning curve for Joe Brady? Probably. Is there going to be an adjustment period for this defense? Absolutely. And with the way the schedule works, could it be a rough September, October? Possibly. But as long as you have Josh Allen at quarterback, you have an offensive line that's been one of the best in the league blocking for him, you should be able to still manage through it and get by during the tough times. And if you make the playoffs with 10 or 11 wins, that's when you should be playing at your best. So my hot take this year is that the Bills might regress in the regular season. They might win only 10 or 11 games.
Right.
But I think this might be their best shot at winning a Super Bowl of the Josh Allen era, simply for I know they're going to score points.
Yeah.
But now they might have a defensive philosophy when it matters the most late in the season to where they'll get it. Maybe they can get it done. So I think everybody's been focused on Brandon Beane should have been fired. Joe Brady's not experienced enough. And then it turns into all this bickering and fighting. And then it turned into, oh, we hate this maybe third jersey and the stadium, the Buffalo weren't big enough. Like, it's just been so much negativity. And I will say one thing about the Brandon Beane retention, and this was reported after McDermott was fired. I have a good friend close to the Bills. I've done a lot of shows with him. He told me about the Beane McDermott showdown, and he told me about it back in November. So when this came out in like January, like power struggle, this, that, like
it was festering at that point.
Writing on the wall.
It was already happening, but the part I find like kind of ironic about it is like everybody's trying to make Beane a villain in a power struggle. A power struggle is two people. This is not just Beane throwing McDermott under the bus. McDermott was throwing Beane under the bus consistently too. And if what I heard is true, it was a 50-50. And the owner chose Beane over McDermott. So I guess what I would say with my vibes, I feel better about this team than most fans. Doesn't mean that things can't just fall apart this year.
Right.
But long term, they needed to do something to try to salvage the next 5 years of Josh Allen before it was clearly going to be too late.
A couple things I liked as you were talking about right there was first I want to talk about the offensive line, because everybody's worried like, oh, David Edwards is no longer there. Well, yeah, good news is you still have some continuity there because Alec Anderson is still in play. You have Tylen Grable. You still have some familiar faces that are still going to be fixtures on that offensive line.
They've been good at developing those guys too.
Right.
They have been, really.
And the newest offensive line coach was a disciple of, why is his name missing me right now? The previous offensive line coach. He just retired. Oh my God. It's killing me. Mike, what's his name right off the top of your head? Oh, it's just on the tip of my tongue.
The guy that just left?
Yes.
Are you talking about Cromer?
Yes, Aaron Cromer. Yes, it was right on the tip of my tongue. But the current offensive line coach, I know is a disciple of Cromer. So there's got to be some of those schemes that are still going to be relatively in place. Excuse me. But at the same time, the biggest thing, like right away from Joe Brady's press conference, when he was introduced as head coach, was that they want to set up Josh Allen. We're all about trying to support Josh Allen. Whereas for Sean McDermott, he was all about the dynamic of trying to have everybody just working together. And obviously, like, you want that to work as a team, but your greatest asset, the reason why you have a $2+ billion stadium across the street from the old, what's left of the old one now, is because of 17. And the fact that they're now going to be more dialed in on supporting him. I mean, I think that is a big takeaway right there. But at the same time, you could maybe question how they went about getting different weapons for him. I mean, you could even talk about earlier today when Tim Graham's article about Brandon Cooks came out, like he might want to have a return. Sounds like that could be something that could be easily done. Salary cap wise, I believe they also have an open roster space available. I think they're sitting at 89 at the moment. But at the same time, if you're looking at that receiver depth chart, a lot of people are immediately pointing to, oh, well, Joshua Palmer, like, oh, he's always injured, things like that. So, I mean, it might be a put up or shut up moment for him because he's always on the sidelines with some type of injury. But at the same time, like, there's going to be some level of continuity, like you were saying, Mike. And the fact that you still have Josh Allen as your great equalizer in any game, you will still be able to be in. I mean, even week one against Houston, like, say what you will, they were able to more or less beat the Bills' ass in so many ways last offseason. I mean, this is going to be the first game of the season. They're going to have a totally revamped look, a revamped vibe. You got a couple new weapons in DJ Moore. You got Skylar Bell. Not sure how much he'll be really featured into the offense at this point, but still, it's nice to hear just that more people are still optimistic about it. I mean, but they do have a ton of pressure on them just because Sean McDermott was fired after making a couple AFC championships, perennial division winner, multiple playoff wins under his belt, and that was deemed not good enough. And then now for Joe Brady to step in and just kind of take full-on mantle. Yes, he's been there for a number of years as quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator. So not like he's unfamiliar to the vibes of the locker room or the area for that matter. But, I mean, that's an immense amount of pressure for just that first-year head coach.
I think a lot of that is made-up pressure. Yeah. I don't think they really feel it inside the building. Externally, it makes sense. New coach, replacing a guy that had been the head coach for 9 years, 8 playoff appearances. But the half the reason why they replaced McDermott was because he tensed up in big moments. He couldn't get them to where they were. I know everybody is acting like, oh, Brady could be fired if like they don't get to divisional round or if they have a setback. I think Brady, as long as Brandon Beane isn't fired after the end of the season, I think Brady is pretty much safe for at least going into next season.
I was going to ask you 2.5 under over for Brady. 2.5 years.
I think Brady's going to do really well. This year might be some learning curve moments and obviously tough schedule, and you have the Patriots like ascending. Yeah. But if you see, a lot of the tough stuff is like, do you believe everything that Tyler Dunn is writing or do you not? And his original article about McDermott a couple years ago, I thought it was a little bit harsh, a little bit over the top. But then the more I've read Tyler Dunn,
maybe needed,
possibly. And the more I've read Tyler Dunn's articles, and he has a lot of insight. And it's clear he has a lot of players talking to him. He's getting a lot of information that not many other Buffalo media members have gotten out there. And basically my takeaways from having heard Tyler Dunn in his podcast and reading his stuff, I think this is probably something that some people probably alluded to, like this might be needed. And one of those players, I'm not going to say he asked for it, but it sounds like if you read between the lines of Tyler Dunn, that Josh Allen, if you asked him, do the Bills need to fire Sean McDermott, fire him? He probably wouldn't say like, oh, he probably wouldn't say we need to fire him, but he would probably say like,
he would never throw anybody under the bus.
We might need a different voice. It sounds like they had a little bit of a stained relationship where Allen respects him, knew that he was a good head coach, but that maybe Allen felt like he needed something else, a different vision. And because you just saw how Allen looked after that loss against Denver. And to me, that's the face of either a quarterback that knew his coach was getting fired mostly because of his 4 turnovers, or it was the face of a quarterback that's like, what do we got to do to get this done? And like I always say this to everybody too, and this has been the toughest thing I think to be a Bills fan of the Josh Allen era. You have arguably the best quarterback in the league, and then maybe from 2020 to 2022, you still had pretty good defenses most of those years. There's definitely been a drop off in the defense the last 2 years.
Yeah,
but the Bills typically, outside of the Cincinnati loss, they don't typically like lose blowouts or games where you're just like they were outperformed. It's always some game like Denver where they're shooting themselves in the foot. They find a way to make up for it. They take the lead, then they blow the lead, then they have a chance to win it in overtime, and something crazy happens and they lose. Like you have 3 losses against KC in the playoffs that could have all gone your way. You have the loss against Denver that could have gone your way. And you just flip any one of those crazy games, you probably win a Super Bowl during that era. So I think it's the thought of like, how can you be consistently one of the best teams in the league and not even have one appearance in the Super Bowl to show for?
Right. It's at this point, it's downright criminal, especially for how much Josh Allen has like bled more or less for the team. I mean, not to make it all about him by any means, but still for as many mistakes as he had in the Denver game. But like you look at every year before that with the Kincaid drop. I mean, you could talk about the Cooks catch versus not catch. You could talk about the Diggs through his hands at that divisional game loss at Kansas City at home in Buffalo. But oftentimes it's just always the defense. Why are they not able to make a stop at any of these big, crucial, like you said, defining moments of the Sean McDermott era? But I mean, just to kind of like put a bow on that part of the Bills conversation here, just because, again, training camp's right around the corner. So, I mean, I was just curious just about what your personal thoughts were, Mike, just because, again, not everybody's going to be at the same like vibe level when it comes to talking about the team throughout the course of the year, because some people will be like, yeah, we're going to win the Super Bowl. Other people, like you were being a little bit more cautiously optimistic, just because, again, you're going to have some level of growing pain. Maybe it's not going to be 2 losses in a row in the stretch of October or November, but there's going to be some version of that.
I'll say this. I told you how regression regular season, more prepared in the playoffs. I have not picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl once during the Josh Allen era. I'm probably one of very few Bills fans and I'll be real with you. It's because on paper and eye test, Kansas City was a better team than them 90% of those years.
Oh, for sure.
Kansas City's not there anymore. And Baltimore always gets in their own way. The rest of the AFC is a bunch of toss-up teams that had
unproven.
Maybe they decided to be good. Who knows?
I'll say this. This is the first year in my life that I've ever picked the Bills to go to the Super Bowl. And it really just comes down to what the simple stuff I told you earlier. If they make the playoffs, I have complete faith the offense will be able to carry the job. But for the first time ever, I think a defense that's an aggressor that is trying to impact the game and make you make mistakes rather than sitting back and in letting the game come to them. I think that's the difference between being able to make a run and not being able to make a run. And fans, you can call me crazy, but I think we've all been bringing up the defense for 6 years.
Yeah.
Defense steps up in the playoffs. To me, that's the difference. Can they win a game for the Bills where the Bills score 17 points? Can they win a game where Josh Allen doesn't have his best performance? When you're in Denver, you're going up against Bo Nix. You have the lead with 2 minutes left, and you can't get a stop. That's awful, man.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Right? I mean, again, not to bring up any scar tissue there, but
I'm
love that take. No, it's all good. No, I appreciate you just kind of like, again, having it come full circle there. But now to kind of be topical, to say the least, the new stadium, of course, is coming chock full of personal seat licenses, which is new for this year. Obviously, with the new stadium, the Pagulas, they're keeping up with the Joneses now. All these big fancy palaces of stadiums, and now it's to a point where it's like that. Some people are calling it the haves versus the have-nots. Now, off camera, we were talking about this, but on WGR Sports Radio today, the morning show with Sneaky Joe, Owen Parker, and Joe Cali, they had a caller call in and basically call the people who don't have PSLs at this point peasants. And say what you will, it might be a guy trolling or just trying to rage bait, or he could have just been that. Yeah, exactly. Boo is just right. It could have just been outright just clueless. Like Owen Parker rightly just said, like, no, get off our airwaves. And you had basically a buffoon. I forget his exact verbiage, but he nailed, I think, just the way to how to deal with that caller. But at the same time, it does raise a level of question for how people are really going to view this going forward, because this is another new thing as far as the stadium goes. And I texted my sister earlier today because she is a season ticket holder, has been for years. And she also just carried over and brought her season tickets over in the new stadium as well. I asked her, like, hey, what are your like immediate takeaways on this? And she said exactly verbatim, I'm just reading her text, what she said, especially regarding the 2 practices. The first one being available to the PSL owners, the return of the blue and red scrimmage. And then the second one, the newly announced August 18th practice. She said, I'm fine with the 2 practices. We have one just for us, the PSL owners, and of course, other people should have access. And she said this right after, the Bills do need to make the increased ticket costs, and PSL's worth it for people. So it's cool that the blue and red is for us. But she said at the end of the day, it's football. We can't gatekeep a football team. And I love that right there, just because, again, I think that gets like the absolute like embodiment of what people like. I'm not telling you how to feel, of course, but like how people really should like approach that, because again, there's a big discourse of this on the radio today, and I'm sure other platforms will talk about it as well. But like, you shouldn't have as far as like the Bills, like tailgating culture, like this, the vibe of just what the fan base is all about. It's like your average Joe's being able to go to the game. And now with the PSLs, for some people basically having to take out a second mortgage or selling their arm or their leg just to be able to afford these things or on some type of payment plan. I mean, I do like how she kind of worded that with just like, you can't really gatekeep this because again, like it's nice that these people do have access to their seats at all times, but you should still in some way make it accessible for everybody to be able to enjoy it. Mike, what's your thoughts on that?
So I think this is a pretty simple thing that's been overcomplicated by people. The Bills should still give access to people regardless of if they have PSLs or not. I wasn't upset about it. I was perfectly fine with a second practice for regular fans who want to go. And honestly, I wouldn't have even minded if they gave them the opportunity to go to the blue and red for anybody that didn't claim their ticket. I understand why they made it a private event, and that probably upset a lot of people because you're going from a stadium with a lot of access to now a stadium that is 10,000 seats smaller, a lot more money involved, and a lot of people that have gotten used to seeing the Bills up close in person, they're seeing their access cut down, and that's a really frustrating thing, and that's going to lead to a lot of emotions. And I think when Ryan Talbot originally reported the blue and red being for PSL holders only, there was a lot of outrage over that. And to be honest, I thought that was a little bit unfair because the fact of it is, first event in the stadium, the reason they were making that for PSL holders is you got 54,000 of them, and it's a 60,000 seat stadium. Everybody wants to go to their seat. You kind of had to make that an exclusive season ticket holder event, which to me, that seemed the obvious thing to do. It also seemed obvious, have another practice for those that aren't PSL holders so they have a chance to see the team, which the Bills did. I think where the frustration came in was a lot of people looked at the first announcement that wasn't a Bills announcement. That was a story reported by Ryan Talbot. He got access to one of the emails. He reported it. So the Bills didn't announce that they were only having one practice and it was just for PSL holders. It was leaked and reported. Then the Bills come out 3 days later and have a story through Lance Lysowski of the Buffalo Bills that there's going to be an additional practice. They talk about how Joe Brady brought up the idea and that it was discussed in June. And obviously there's some skepticism. Oh, this is just a reaction. I'll tell you this. The original story was reported on what, July 2nd or July 3rd? And then the other story comes out on July 5th. If any fans think the Bills were having meetings on the 4th of July weekend to discuss an open practice for non-PSL holders, they are insane. The entire team and staff is probably out wherever they're celebrating the 4th of July. This was not something that they orchestrated by text message out on the beaches and oceans and cottages, wherever they're at. So I understand that we're like really skeptical right now as a fan base, but that did not happen. Now, what I would say is this. I think what's the tough part is the balance of trying to give people access like they've always had while not upsetting season ticket holders that have paid astronomical costs for PSLs. And I think most of the PSL holders and season ticket holders are understanding of average fans and wanting them to go. And to be honest, if you have this event, the blue and red, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, half the season ticket holders probably won't even take their tickets because by that point, they've been at the stadium for 2 or 3 years. The newness wears off, and then they probably claim them, and you probably still have another 20,000, 30,000 tickets to get. It also is important to realize in the past when they had the blue and red at Old Highmark, season ticket holders had first priority in those as well. They just didn't claim half the tickets. So this is very much about the new stadium and very little to do with the event itself. And I don't think season ticket holders are right to complain about the other practice being available to non-PSL holders. I think the problem is this. A lot of people have been told, well, if you get the PSL, that you get the first right to any event. Right. That's not accurate. It's not true. It's up to the event holder that's running it. Most of the time, those season ticket holders will have first priority to buy tickets to those events. But this was a ticketed event. This is a practice that's free outside of parking. So I think it's just some people, when they're spending thousands of dollars, they're just frustrated that the second event ever at the stadium is some giveaway that they don't even have the ability to go to. I would say suck it up. You're going to be seeing 10 regular season games or whatever, 10 games, including preseason. You're going to have first dibs on playoff games. You're going to see the stadium several times. Just don't complain. You look entitled in that moment. But I would also tell the rest of the Bills Mafia, let's not bite the Bills on every little thing. Let's not kill them. They did think of you. They did get a practice. I know it sucks. It's a Tuesday morning at 8:30. I would just say both sides need to calm down about this, because I'll end the PSL stuff like this. When they first came out with the new stadium, I so many people came out and they're like, the PSL model is never going to work out here. They're never going to sell out the stadium. They're never going to get the stadium built on time. Well, guess what? The stadium is done well in advance of the regular season. They sold out every seat available. They had 80% retention from their old stadium to their new stadium. They're over 90% PSL for the stadium, 54,000 out of their 60,000 seats. So I think the Bills have a pretty good idea of what their base is, what their base can afford. And other markets like Cleveland are talking about doing 100% PSL. So, so the Bills could have actually done this a little bit even harder if they wanted to. They chose not to. So I just think there's a little bit of, this is the way the NFL runs. Is it greedy? Is it corporate? All this other type of stuff? Yes. Is it annoying if you haven't been dealing with it for the last 30 years? Yeah. It is what it is. You want to play with the big boys, you got to act like a big boy. And that's how the world is in professional sports.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say about that, because this is another thing my sister said too, is just like, because I said, like, I know you guys shelled out a ton just to be able to get these PSLs too, just like many others did as well. But she's like, we did. And it's a shift now in how the Bills are going to be doing business. So some things, like you were saying, Mike, are going to be different. Cost of having a new stadium with an elite football team, MVP caliber player. And the last thing she said, and I could not agree more, is like, we've dreamed of days like these. So hard to disagree with that.
100%. We should be happy. We should be embracing this. Like, it's almost like, well, would you rather the Bills be 5-11 or 5-12, and then we all get in for cheap prices? Like, it's like the articles that are talking about, well, it's $700 for the cheapest ticket to get into the Bills home opener. Well, yeah, the home opener every year is a $300 ticket. Now you add in a brand new stadium, Thursday night football against one of the best teams in the NFC. Makes sense. When you make it overly simple and you make it very broad and generic, you can vilify almost anybody. When you put all the context out there, a lot of this makes sense what they're doing.
For sure. Sean, I think you're ready to pivot to some Sabres talk. Am I right?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the Sabres. Mike, I wanted to ask you one final question about the Bills, if I can. We talked a little about the defense. Obviously, we talked about there's definitely a possibility that they maybe take a little bit of a regression and a step back in the regular season. But just looking at like what they did in the draft, obviously first round pick was I think he was it early second. We take it to the end first. Yeah. Very defensively heavy draft. But like you said, basically same offensive coordinator, same offense coming back with obviously the integration of DJ Moore and his outside receiver capabilities coming in. So very easy to see that the offense can continue to hum along and be good. But looking at from a defensive perspective, is it really that hard to think? And you alluded to this a little bit, that changing the scheme into more of like a 3-4 front and like a heavier front with multiple linebackers instead of doing like the two guys with a nickel on the field and obviously passing downs and the nickel being our base defense. Is it really hard to think in your mind that the defense could take a step up, and could they be a top 12 to 10 defenses this year?
That's a tough one. I would have told you last year I thought they were going to be a top 10 defense just because they had a bunch of young players in the system for a second year, and I thought you were going to see a lot of progression by those guys, and it never really materialized. Last year, the defense, points allowed wasn't horrible, but like almost every other metric was pretty good, pretty bad. I mean, could they take a step up from what they were last year? Yeah, it's almost impossible for them to be as bad against the run as they were last season.
It's very true.
This is what I would say. I think by the end of the year, the defense could be and should be in a better spot than where they were all of last year. I don't expect this to be a good defense this year. I see some people talking top 10 defense, a defense that could create problems. I think this is a middle of the pack defense at the moment. There's going to be some, they might have some games that they're going to look better, but I think there's going to be some games where they get exposed in bad ways.
Right.
It's a lot of guys that are changing their roles. They didn't really get a ton of outside help. They're relying on a lot of young players. Like a lot of it comes down to like, can a Maxwell Hairston step up? Can Cole Bishop repeat what he did last year? Can Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams, can they get things done at linebacker? You have Parker, you have Landon Jackson. Can he do anything? Is Michael Hoyt going to be healthy? Is Ed Oliver, can he get you through an entire season and repeat what he did in the short sample size, but do it over a longer period of time? Deion Walker, can he repeat his rookie year? Rousseau in a different role, can he become a sack guy? Bradley Chubb it's like you kind of go on, and it's tough for me because I'll put it like this. The Cincinnati Bengals didn't have a better defense than the Bills the years that they made back-to-back AFC championships in the 1 year they got to the Super Bowl. Right. But in the playoffs, in big moments, that Bengals defense was capable of stepping up and shutting down Josh Allen in Buffalo.
Right.
I don't care if the Bills allow 24 points a game this year, as long as they're scoring like 28, 29 points a game. But what I need is in the playoffs, in a critical matchup, can they get that sack to get off the field? Can they create a timely takeaway? Because with the Bills, with McDermott, they always on good years allowed about 17 points per game. The bad years about 21 points a game. That's very little variance. Right. But the problem is, if you know you can't stop the elite quarterbacks, then you're not getting any help when it actually matters. You had a consistently good, not great defense. This defense, give me the variance. Give me a great game to equal out every bad game. Because if you're having a bad game, I still trust Josh Allen can put 35 points and win. But if you give me a great game where you hold a team down to 14, maybe the Bills can win a playoff game 24-14 and just feel like, oh, God, we're up 10 in the third quarter. We're rolling in this. That's what they need. So I don't expect the stats to be great, but I expect them to be in a better position when it matters.
Sounds like to me, hearing you answer that question long-windedly, which was amazing, by the way, very detailed, that there's a lot of question marks on that defense. Another team that might have a lot of question marks on it is the Sabres. Transitioning to the NHL, we see Alex Tuch decide to opt out and leave his childhood team and maybe follow his wife, maybe not, but he leaves town. Bo Byram is traded out of town and signs a ridiculous contract. It's been a very kind of interesting offseason so far. We just see that Anaheim matches an offer sheet for Karlsson.
Insanity today.
Which is crazy. Now it's the highest paid player in the league. So it seems to me that the Sabres are going to have, and granted, it's early-ish in the offseason. Still, a lot of moves can be made, signings, Pat Kane, trades. DeBrincat's name has been mentioned.
Yeah, more on Pat Kane and Connor Hellebuck later, by the way.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more. But just what we've seen so far today, if we're building the lines today for this team, it seems like the team and the GM Jarmo Kekalainen and the front office is putting an absolute ton of faith. I'm not going to say blindly, because there's been times that the guys showed up in the playoffs in the last season, but they're putting a lot of faith into these young players. They seem to plug a couple holes with Zellweger and the guy we picked up from the Blackhawks and the trade, Crevier. But what are you seeing as far as like if they've rolled out this team? And for my opinion, I feel like they've slightly regressed just with losing Bo Byram and Tuch, and they signed some like fringe bottom tier type players, a backup goalie maybe for Rochester. What do you see? Do you feel like the team can have these guys elevate, or do you think that we might see some additional moves happen? And where do you see them like going with the season?
Yeah, I think there has to be another move or two at some point. We'll talk about Hellebuck and Kane when you're ready to, but
sure.
I would say I'm the kind of the opposite on the Sabres right now. compared to where I was with the Bills, which is funny because everybody's down on the Bills, and I actually feel positive about their chances. Everybody's positive on the Sabres, and I'm a little bit more negative about the Sabres.
I feel that. I feel you.
Yes.
And this is what I'll say. It's not that I don't believe in the Sabres. I think they're a really good team. I still think that they could be one of the best in the Eastern Conference. And my view isn't because they lost Tuck and Byram. I like Byram. You know what? I like Byram when they traded Casey Middlestat for him, and I just remember Sabres fans killing that move. So that was one where I was against the grain, and it turned out to be very right on that one. Tuck, the money, it's probably fair market right now, but for the Sabres, is that really what you need to do for a 30-year-old who maybe doesn't project well 5, 6, 7 years down the line?
Right.
This is what I'll say, and I'll go back to last year. Last year, the Sabres, a lot of the models had them between 90 to 98 points. I posted about it continuously. People laughed at me saying, this team has missed the playoffs 14 years in a row. And you're telling me about models that say they can make the playoffs. You're insane. What are you talking about? The over-under in Vegas was between 82 to 85 points. I said, hammer the over.
Hammer the over. I love it.
And people are like, why are you saying that? Because my answer was, well, almost everyone in their right mind thinks the Sabres stink and they're going to go under. They're coming off a 79-point season. And every model says they're going to be 90 points. And this is when I learned kind of more about the concept of puck luck. The models had them at 90-plus because they said the year they had 79, they had almost everything go against them. So the model said they were really more of an 85, 86-point team. They added guys like Doan, Kesselring, Lyon, and the models are saying, you're going to get a little bit better with these guys.
Positive regression. Yeah,
so possible progression. This is where, unfortunately, the reverse is applicable
reverse to the means, kind of like how turnover luck goes in the NFL.
Yeah, so the Sabres last year had 109 points. They had good expected goals metrics. Their defensive goals allowed metrics, like they were like 19th in the league, but they were top 10 in goals allowed during the regular season. And a big reason is because they had some of the best goals saved above expected from UPL and Alex Lyon. Two issues here. One, normally when you have average metrics and you have elite point totals, something is going to give. The next year, your metrics are either going to go up to match your point totals or your point totals are going to drop to get closer to your metrics. So one of those two things happens. The second thing is when you have a goalie like UPL that's been wildly inconsistent throughout his career, just as great as he was this past season, it's just as likely he could have an 895 save percentage next year. And Lyon could go down to an 896. And then those 5 to 10 games that they won you might lead to 5 to 10 games they lose you. That could be the difference. So a lot of the point models right now have them for 95 to 96 points. Like I said, I think the roster's incomplete. I still think that can increase. But all Sabres fans are so high on the team. The point models are low. That means you normally you're banking on some regression. And this is the other thing I'll say. A couple years ago, Sabres have a 91-point season. I don't know if that was 3 years ago, whatever. Management banked on Peterka, Cousins, Quinn. And I'm not saying this is the same team. 109 points versus 91, that's an 18-point difference. But if you looked at Peterka and you isolate all three of these players, Peterka's had 25-plus goals, I think, 3 times in his career now. I don't know what he finished last year, but he's had around 25 goals several times.
Also got benched in the playoffs, by the way.
Cousins is a guy that scored 30-plus, had a good rebound season last year with Ottawa. Quinn reached 20 goals. If you would have told people 4 years ago, that Cousins, Quinn, Peterka would be consistent 50-plus point guys, all of them have the ability to score 20-plus goals, they would have taken that in a heartbeat, and you would have said, oh, that's going to be a great second line. But we saw them together, and it wasn't a great second line. It was an awful line. It was dreadful. They didn't play defense. They didn't do anything Ruff asked them to do. And we ended up separating two of the guys, and guess what happens? You get rid of Cousins and Peterka, the team finally gets good. I'm not saying that Helenius, Kulik, and Ostlund are the same players. I think they're much better two-way players. But we have to remember, Helenius has played 9 regular season games. Ostlund's played 1 season of 60 games where he had 27 points, I believe. And then Kulik is coming off blood clots. We are putting a lot of faith in 3 guys that are between the ages of 20 to 22 years old to be the reason why we go from 109 points and winning the Atlantic to taking the next step to being an Eastern Conference contender all while losing a guy that was one of the best leaders in your team in Alex Tuck, and then losing another guy in Bo Byram who fit your defense very well. And then
also a leader in the locker room too.
Leader in the locker room. And then you got to ask, like, is Josh Norris going to be healthy for 82 games? Because if he's not healthy, then that creates another hole in your lineup. And if he is healthy, like, that actually could be really good for the Sabres.
Yeah.
Same point. You're talking about, I like Zellweger. I like the idea of Crevier. Those are not proven guys at any point. Like, we can look at like a war card and be like, oh, look at Zellweger's war number. Like, oh, he's going to be a great replacement.
He's fast. He shoots hard.
He might be good. He might be really good. We don't know yet. He's too young, unproven. We hope it works out. It's a projection. So I have two different ways I look at the Sabres. I have my short term. I have my long term. Long term, I think this team is going to be one of the best in the NHL. Short term, I think there's a few things that they can do to complete this roster that can elevate them. And I'll end up last thing I'll say too about the projections. Got to remember last year Florida didn't have Barkov. They didn't have Tkachuk the first third of the season.
They got better too. They got better.
The team quit in early February. Toronto had a big drop off out of nowhere last year. They didn't anticipate dropping off the way they did after Marner. You now have a Florida team that's just ready for vengeance this year. Yeah. Tampa just added John Carlson. They're going to be good still. Montreal is kind of your equal. Where like, I don't know if I even think Montreal is great, but I think they're the same situation as Buffalo.
Young and fast.
Yeah. You still have a Boston team that I think they'll regress, but they got ability. And Ottawa, like, I know they lost Brady Tkachuk, but the models still think that Ottawa is some team with some potential. So I would tell Sabres fans this. If they don't make a move or two, they're closer to missing the playoffs than they are to being at the top of the conference.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
But I would still pick them to make it. But there's a couple things that I would be in favor of to solidify it.
And by no means would they have home ice advantage if they made it. I feel like they would get in as a wild card team at best next year, the way the current roster is structured.
Chris Maz, I was going to say this too. When you look at the two teams, I think we could all probably agree that like the Sabres window, if it's even open, is just opening now. And they got a long time as long as they keep making good, solid moves with their personnel. And they've been doing a really good job with the cap. I will commend them for that. They have a long time to get good. Even if they were to miss the playoffs this year and regress a little bit, they have a long runway. Different from the Bills. You got to win now with Josh Allen to get him a Super Bowl before he loses his legs, bro.
Yeah. More on the Sabres next. We're going to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor for the show. That would be DraftKings Sportsbook. So keep in mind now, the DraftKings Sportsbook is now available in all 50 states and includes all markets. Taking a look at some of the odds right now, if you're looking at some futures for, say, the NFL, for Super Bowl odds, looking at right now, you have the LA Rams looking like the powerhouse that they will be. They have the shortest odds at plus 550, but the Buffalo Bills tied for second for the next best Super Bowl odds, tied with the Ravens at plus 1,000 for their odds, according to their sports book. But if you're going over to hockey, the Sabres, they are tied with Utah, New Jersey, and the LA Kings at plus 3,000 for their Stanley Cup odds, current top contenders there for the Cup. Also tied with the Florida Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes at plus 650 for their odds. So keep that in mind if you're looking to maybe make some futures bet in the near future. But keep this in mind. Also, new DraftKings customers, sign up with code THPN and spend $5 to get $200 in rewards within 21 days. That's code THPN in partnership with DraftKings. The crown is yours. And let's get right back to it here. So I want to talk about Connor Hellebuyck because obviously his name has been heavily rumored to the Sabres, both right before the start of free agency, during the days leading up to the draft, day of the draft, just because the 2 first-round picks that the Sabres acquired through their trades with San Jose and with Chicago. But the discourse on Hellebuyck obviously is like, oh, he's 33 years old. Oh, he's coming off his worst season. Oh, he was just injured this past season. But taken into context of a lot of things, you have the Winnipeg Jets just not exactly having the greatest of years last year. The team didn't exactly play some strong defense in front of Hellebuck. But at the same time, when the lights shine the brightest, especially in the Olympics, played a hell of an Olympic series. He basically stood on his head and had 40-plus saves in the win over Canada for the gold medal game. I mean, he's just a couple years removed from a Hart and Vezina combo, not to mention an additional Vezina the year prior. And I was looking at a lot of other people just projecting on how goalies of his stature just really matured into their 30s. And Hellebuck, just based on previous performance, excuse me, he's projected to be at this level or right at about league average for the foreseeable future, just based on how he currently plays and as long as he's still obviously taking care of his body, things of that nature, so on and so forth. And obviously the team performs in front of him. And looking at that and comparing it to the 3 goalie tandem that the Sabres have, you have UPL, you have Alex Lyon, you have Colton Ellis. Obviously, Colton Ellis is only getting about anywhere from 15 to 18 games, but the bulk of the games are going to be going currently, as long as the Sabres would not be making a move, be going to UPL and Alex Lyon. Now, Alex Lyon, great story. He's able to set that win streak record for the Sabres as far as his consecutive starts, passing Dominik Hasek, really awesome moment last season. But I just feel like time and time again, I've been on record of saying this on Twitter, there's some days you really love UPL and some days you just want to strangle him.
Like game 7?
Yes, and you just feel like you've just been done with him on just a number of occasions. Now, a lot of people aren't going to really love the Hellebuck move. I know I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, Mike, but at the very least, whether it's for the regular season or the playoffs, because Hellebuck's had great numbers in the playoffs too. Just obviously, there's just bad luck. Maybe he had a bad game, unfortunate, this, that, whatever. At the very least, if you're going to be strutting out UPL for the majority of your starts, like they typically do, even if it's just by a little, I would much rather have that peace of mind. And it took me a while to kind of really come around to this too, after just seeing all the conjecture and discourse on this over like the past month and change now since his name's been in circulation. I would rather have my floor be at Connor Hellebuck as opposed to what UPL or the tandem would give me, just because they can be league average or they can have a really off year, because UPL has not shown that he has had consistency in year after year seasons. He's had last year, he was great. He was one of the best goalies, I believe, January onwards. But looking at Alex Lyon, like, was that a flash in the pan for just a wily vet? Colton Ellis, he's very unproven. Mike, what are your thoughts as far as the Sabres potentially trying to acquire somebody like Connor Hellebuck? And would it be something you would want them to do, more or less?
Everything that they've done this offseason points to them trying to acquire Connor Hellebuck. And I know Chad G. Dominicus recently tweeted that he expects Hellebuck to start the year with the Jets. I wouldn't necessarily 100% agree with that. And I do wonder if his Sabres source is intentionally telling him that to set certain narratives out there. As a former journalist, I'll tell you this. Sometimes you're told stuff because it's real and valid, and other times you're told stuff because the team wants other people to think that's the case. And
you mean, Mike, you're just a pawn? We're just a pawn?
Sometimes we're just a pawn.
Oh.
This is what I'd say. For years, I have been on the goalies are the running backs of hockey, where you know the saying, you don't draft a running back in the first round. But if you know you could get like a Bijan Robinson or somebody like that, it's a little bit different story where, you know, like a Jonathan Taylor or somebody that can get you everything. Like, you would take that guy because the best of the best are more than just a running back. They're a receiver. They also help pass protect in important situations. So you don't have a problem when you get that 5-tool guy. That's kind of how I view Connor Hellebuck. I've always said, if you're not getting one of the top 5 goalies in the league, then don't do this. But I think Connor Hellebuck is one of the top 5 goalies in the league. And it's funny because a lot of fans, and this isn't like a criticism, they don't know the context. Like, we hear Alex Tuch at 30, we're like, he's old. You can't sign him to a long-term contract. Then you see Connor Hellebuck at 33, and I'm here saying, no, like, this is great. Like, bring him on. it's one of those things where, like, as a regular skater, once you lose your speed or your edge and your athleticism, you're toast. Like, you don't have anything anymore. At goalie, you have the experience. You big body, you just get in the right position. Like, your eyes are more important. You lose your eyes, that's when you drop off. Right. And my thought with Connor Hellebuyck is this. We talked about how right now you look at the Sabres, and their team is probably a little bit worse right now than what it was at this point a year ago. Well, Connor Hellebuyck could help narrow that gap a little bit, win you a couple games that maybe you shouldn't win, to maybe he makes a 95-point team on 99 or 100-point team, and that gets you in at least. And if we're talking about a team where we know their short-term window is good, but their long-term window is great, it might be you need a guy like Connor Hellebuyck the next 2 years to really get them by to where they could be competing in your division still and still having a chance to win a playoff series or two, but really give Oslin, Kulik, and Helenius another 2 years to where even when he's 35, 36, 37, he can still play at a decent enough average level to where that's still better than, well, what's UPL going to be at that point? And I think the fear is this. UPL is coming off a great season. And if in some ways it's kind of crappy that a goalie with a 910 save percentage who had as high of an expected goal saved above expected numbers as he did last year, that we're talking about moving on from him. But we saw in the playoffs that he single-handedly gave a game away with just awful goals at critical moments. And as long as players in the back of their mind, or even UPL in the back of his mind, isn't confident that in that moment, that big moment, he's going to get the save, well, you have to get somebody that you believe will give you a better chance to get that save. And I know people are going to be like, well, Hellebuck's playoff numbers aren't great. The last half of his career, they haven't been. The first half of his career, his playoff stats were perfectly fine. I think some of that's also you're playing for a Winnipeg team that doesn't always have the best talent on ice, a team that you've carried a lot. So there's a lot of variables that go into this. And if you just compare basic numbers, Hellebuyck had a down year last year, UPL great season. Then you look at goals saved above expected, and you see Hellebuyck is still pretty good in that area. And this is the biggest context part that needs to be discussed. That just I'm not seeing in the beginning. I wasn't seeing enough people. Now people have kind of caught up to it. Is this theoretically adding a goal like Hellebuyck normally wouldn't elevate your team a ton in terms of what you think. But when you have a forward room as deep as the Sabres have right now, where you have a surplus of guys that you know won't even be able to be on the ice without injuries, well, don't you have an obligation as a franchise to use one or two of them or use a guy in a prospect to acquire a Hellebuyck? It's an avenue to improving your team. It's not really that you're saying, well, Hellebuyck is a world's better than UPL. But if you believe he's more consistent and you have expendable people, well, you're getting better. And then for the next 3 years, you don't have a goalie problem anymore. You don't have any goalie questions anymore. And if you can get UPL out the door and get Hellebuyck in, you're only adding like $3.5 million of salary, which really isn't that much to begin with. And then if you add a Quinn to it, you're even. Yeah. And then you create another gap to where maybe you could bring in another player that could help your team in another area. So it's one of those where it's like, this is roster building 101. Right. And I'll put it like this. The Sabres are coming off a year where they get 109 points, win the Atlantic Division, come within a goal.
Overachieved 100%.
Overachieved 100%.
Yeah.
Coming off a 14-year playoff drought. What is the conversation going to be next year? If UPL is the goalie, has an awful year, the Sabres get 89 points and miss the playoffs. We are gonna talk about how this was just a fluke season, that the Sabres messed up by
get them out of here
by believing too much in the young talent before they were ready. And then guess what happens? A Hellebuyck, no, I'm not going to Buffalo anymore. And then all those guys that were willing to come to you put you back on the no trade clause. I think the expectation in the city is that they got to take another step. And there's only one way you take a step, and you make aggressive moves. And I'm not talking aggressive moves that destroy your franchise.
Right.
Hellebuyck is I think it's a pretty safe bet. And that's why you do it. It's not you're saying you're a Stanley Cup contender with him. You're saying We rose the floor. We already like the ceiling. Now our floor is we expect to make the playoffs. And that's a hell of a lot better than saying, well, we need this guy, and then our goaltending to be there. And then if that all happens, we'll be right where we are at. But if it doesn't, then we're going to be scraping like that door.
Right.
It can't be they're fighting to get in March and April. It has to be you are safely getting in. And I know some people will argue Hellebuck's not that guy. If the Sabres have Hellebuck with this roster and they're not safely making the playoffs,
right,
then
they would have, at the bare minimum, they would have been in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And it's also like not necessarily needing to be like ultra aggressive, but like being aggressive is the GM's MO. Jarmo just took swing after swing, even this year, trying to swing for Robert Thomas, but apparently they got shut down. Almost got Colton Parayko had he waived that no movement clause. I mean, even still, after all that happened, he still tried to make the trade, or still did make the trade actually for Logan Stanley, Luke Shen, and Tanner Pearson, and still also got Sam Carrick as
Rumors
well.
about Helly, like they wanted Benny, and we said no. He tried that.
Yeah, might as well just hang up the phone and say, see you never, if that was still going to be the only offer.
I'm glad you brought up Benny, and I'm glad you talked about like this. So like right now, if you believe what Chad's saying, talks have stopped, and that's what it is. I'll throw out just some reporter logic right now. You have $8.5 million in cap space. Hellebuck is $8.5 million. Sabres keep getting connected to Pat Kane, yet they have a 2-forward surplus right now and conceivably no spot for him. Why are the Sabres getting connected to a player that literally has no room on their roster at the current moment? Well, you could say maybe it's hometown ties, but it seems like there's enough heat. Like it's been talked about. Kane wants to come to Buffalo, and I'm sure if Buffalo wasn't interested in Kane, they could have killed that rumor in a second.
Oh yeah,
I keep this. This is my thought on the whole matter. They tried to make it happen before the draft. They wanted to do 4 for 8 pick swap. Winnipeg told them no way, like you're crazy. Then everybody assumed it was going to be done July 1st because the no trade clauses for UPL and Josh Norris. Conversations kept going. They weren't able to close the deal. UPL doesn't need to be in this deal. As long as you found another team to take UPL, you could still do this deal without.
Someone will take UPL.
His
no movement clause only has 5 teams.
Yeah, and maybe he would be open to going to Winnipeg if it meant getting playing time. But this is the other variable. You get Skinner in Winnipeg. Skinner started 50-plus games like the last 4 seasons.
He's played 2 Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah, he is not going to Winnipeg. Like I heard some people like, oh, we need to give Hellebuck more rest so he can be better late in the season. If you give Hellebuck more rest, you ain't making the playoffs in Winnipeg.
Right.
So
you're giving up 5 goals a game.
So Eric Comrie, our old friend in Buffalo, he's getting paid about $1 million in Winnipeg. So you had Comrie plus Hellebuck, that's $9.5 million. Hellebuck for Skinner is over $12 million right now. That's a lot for 2 goalies, especially when you have one goalie that's rumored to be disgruntled, who there's talk he might not even show up when it matters. Who knows? He's a hockey player. He probably will, but he definitely seems disgruntled. I don't think Hellebuck wants to reduce workload. I don't think Skinner signed in Winnipeg to not see that net. What I think is happening behind the scenes is this. You've heard recently by the insiders that Jack Quinn's name is being dangled. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying this name to like doubt anything, but one of the things Chad has reported is that Quinn's not going anywhere. The Sabres think very highly of Jack Quinn.
Well, his value is as high as it's been.
Well, this is the interesting thing. If you think about this from like a team perspective or a reporter's perspective, why would whoever this source Chad has or that's coming out there, why would he say talks are done with the Jets and that the Sabres really value Jack Quinn? Well, I guess number one, it could be the truth. Maybe the talks are done and the Sabres really just value. If you want to believe them at face value, that's possible. But as a skeptic, as a former journalist,
out there,
this is my thought process. The Jets right now have very little leverage in these negotiations. The only thing that they have leverage on is we're going to hold them and we're not going to trade them to anybody. Carolina tried, but Carolina didn't have enough pieces. Colorado doesn't have enough pieces. Right now, the Sabres are basically negotiating against themselves.
Right.
So the Sabres are like, we have no reason to give you anything more than what we have. We've given you offers. You're not taking it. We're gonna hold off on this for now. We'll revisit this in August. Well, what happens in mid-August, late August? You get closer to the season. Jets talk to Hellebuck. Hey, man, like, are you good with playing with us in case we're not able to move you? He's like,
not really.
No. Like, I don't want to play with you guys. I told you all summer I want out. Trade me. Well, Hellebuck kind of holds the cards here too. If Hellebuck wants to go along with the Jets and be polite hockey player and not say anything, well, maybe he starts the regular season in Winnipeg. That's the way it is. Or well, Hellebuck could force the issue, and he could say, I want out. He could publicly demand a trade. Put the Jets in a compromising situation where imagine Hellebuck starts the season in Winnipeg. He has an 880 save percentage going into December. He has a losing record. The Jets look like crap. He's publicly discontent. He's upset. He could trash his own trade value while disrupting the entire locker room and then basically force his way out for next to nothing.
Right.
I think the thought of the Sabres is, let's wait this out to where the Jets are forced to be in a position where they have to move him on.
Right.
But this is where the Jack Quinn part plays a role in. Jack Quinn might be a great player one day. Who knows? But so far in his career, it's been a little underwhelming. 20 goals. Like, we thought we were going to get this 2 years ago from Quinn.
Right.
Sabres are suddenly talking Jack Quinn up like he's some 30-goal scorer that's going to take the next step.
He might be.
I wonder why they would do that. Well, he's rumored to be in the discussion possibly for Hellebuck. You're basically wanting it out there. You want the insiders to talk up Quinn. So if the Jets inevitably take Quinn, guess what? Their GM can then be like, yeah, we got this guy that like he's ready to ascend. It helps like downplay things a little bit. It helps make you feel like you got a little bit of a win. And then the Sabres maybe don't have to give up the next greatest piece that they have to make a trade happen. Like, so what are my thoughts on this? I think the Sabres are playing the long game for Hellebuck right now. And I've heard people inside the organization think that it is possible he could still be a Sabre before the regular season. And that's where the Patrick Kane stuff comes into this.
I want to add more on that and build on what you're saying
because
there.
If
just
you
because
trade a Jack Quinn for Kane, that's the opening. That's the opening right there. And I'll say this too. You look at the Sabres lineup as it currently is constructed. Where is there room for Helenius to play unless you bench or lower somebody that you already have faith in?
Right.
So, like, it doesn't have to just be Jack Quinn. Like, it might be you open up 2 spots for a Kane and a Helenius to be in that top 9. And the third question, too, is this Krebs arbitration. I think Sabres fans should be concerned because Sabres
get almost $4 million, bro.
I think
you might get 5.
I think it could be higher than 4. Like, Sabres fans talk like, oh, it should be 3 to 3.5 million. I'm just going to be real. Krebs played more than half the season with Thompson last year, and he had 39 points, I believe, and was a positive plus-minus player. On the Sabres, he slots as a 4th liner, so they don't really want to pay him more than 3.
Right.
But if you're going to arbitrate,
flat, as they would say,
which I think an arbitrator is going to side with Krebs on this. They're going to look at him and be like, yeah, the same Buffalo, you said he's a 4th liner, but he had 39 points. How many?
And he played on your top wing.
And Lindy really likes him.
He's played a lot of penalties. Thompson.
A lot of goals, nice games.
And you know what? I could see it between realistically my value. Before the offseason, I said I thought Krebs was a $4 million guy based on what.
I say 3.9. I'm right with you.
Based on what he did this season. And
a
lot of fans are like, no, he's a 2.5 to 3. You get 40 points, basically 40 points.
Right.
Jury out of Colorado or whatever it was got like 4.5 million.
There.
He had less.
Let me add this to the screen right here, just because it's talking all about the things we're getting into here. So shout out JFresh Hockey and HockeyStats.com. Outstanding website here. So talking about Patrick Kane, and I have Jack Quinn right here. If you're just looking at their 3-year averages, just based on what HockeyStats.com is showing, and they get a ton of aggregate data on here. If you're looking at their defensive value on here, like everybody knows Kane is not playing defense, but if you're just replacing these guys 1-for-1 right here, Jack Quinn isn't playing defense either.
Right.
Patrick Kane, infinitely more useful on the power play. Jack Quinn, almost nothing on the power play. Is finishing for Patrick Kane so much higher. Trajectory overall is just going up higher and higher overall for Patrick Kane. Not saying like they must sign him, like they need to make some big move of any kind. But if you're just looking at like pure stats, he's 37. Like again, you're not counting on Patrick Kane for defense.
Sign a 1-year deal, maybe more than one if he's coming home.
If it's 2, you could sweeten the pot a little bit. Sure, great, whatever. If that's your plan. But if you're shipping somebody like Jack Quinn out in this case, like Mike was saying here, you're talking about and building him up as a player that he's going to become. Like, yes, he has the potential to add to your offense. I mean, just look at the statistics that it's showing right here. I mean, but let's even plug in Peyton Krebs for that matter. I'll put him as a comparison on the other side as well. I mean, you're looking at similar things here. Yes, is he better defensively, but he's not a finisher. He can definitely add some assists right there. But even so, the time on ice that he's shown, he's been a fourth liner. I mean, he could play center, he could play wing. Of course, like you got a little bit of versatility. You can move him up and down the lineup. Sure, of course. But I was also thinking about this earlier today just because a lot of conversation like what's somebody like Jason Zucker going to do? Because, again, he's had a little bit more of a positive set of stats.
He's good. He's highly paid. Like, he's making a lot of money.
Right. I mean, does somebody like him get shipped out, too, as another veteran presence for a team that's maybe in need? I mean, if I'm looking at all these stats side by side for these players going here, I mean, say what you will about the personal stuff of Patrick Kane. Like, everybody may be bringing that up just because it would be topical, of course, if he came to the team. He's got some skeletons in his closet for more than one reason.
He's old. He's as old as us.
Right.
He's the same age as us. He's a different guy.
If you're looking at just what he's able to provide on the ice, in the locker room, the dude's won 3 Stanley Cups.
And their number one need, by the way, their number one need on the PP.
Mm-hmm.
If Kane wasn't from Buffalo,
right,
Sabres fans would be way more for this move. And this is one of those instances where him actually being a hometown guy is actually more of a negative than a positive, because we know what he was like as a young person. And this is what I would say to those people that still hold that against him. He was in his early 20s.
Right.
He was stupid to punch the cab driver. Obviously, there was some allegations about misconduct and everything that never ended up materializing. So there's probably people that know things that happened when he was a younger person, and they continue to hold that against him to this day. And I understand, like, if he did some of the things that people talk about, like, that's really bad. And I'm a type of person, you hold people accountable. I know the whole Vrabel stuff. I was saying he doesn't deserve to get a standing ovation. And what I would say is, to a person like Kane, don't applaud the person. But as a hockey player,
which is what you want for your team, the hockey player
you're looking for in free agency, he's one of the best available players out there right now. And it's ironic because everybody's like, he doesn't play a lick of defense. Well, neither does Jack Quinn. So neither did JJ Peterka, neither did Dylan Cousins, neither did a lot of these other guys. And the point of it is, Kane would have been near the top of the Sabres in points per game for the game that he played last year. He's still an elite power play generator, setup man. You have a lot of guys that can finish in Buffalo. Well, you got a guy that can set them up now.
Yeah.
You got a guy that can go on your third line, your second line, and then in a crunch, if needed, could step up in the top line in limited action.
Also, if I was one of these young guys in that locker room, I would kill to be able to hear what Patrick Kane thinks.
They look up to him. Tage Thompson, I think, has said that Pat Kane was one of his favorite players. And you're talking about a 3-time Stanley Cup champion,
who is NHL cover athlete, like, for what that's worth.
Well, almost a cover athlete. The second time they took him off.
It's just I don't want to call people out, but a lot of the Pat Kane talk is out of people that personally don't
hockey people.
And I know there's some people with hockey reasons that don't know if he's the fit, but I don't want to say I was maybe a little ahead of the curve on this, but like, I was one of the first people on Twitter that brought up, well, if you're getting Kane, you're trading out to other people to create the spot. And I don't know if that just didn't click to people in the beginning, because the narrative early on was there's no space for him. I'm like, well, they're not going to sign him unless there is space. So like, figure out the math. Hellebuck gone, open, Kane. Like, it's just a question of, like, you would assume if the Sabres are in dialogue with Kane that would be something that they have
right.
brought up to him. And if they are waiting to add a Kane based on a Hellebuck move, how long is Kane willing to wait? And is he willing to wait a month? Or at some point, does he just sign with someone? And if his options are really Chicago versus Buffalo, the only really allure of Chicago is to finish with the franchise you started with. Yeah. There's no more Taves there. Bedard is going to be hurt this year. So
shell of himself.
Aren't going to do much this year. And here's the other little part about this that people aren't discussing enough.
Yeah.
If Kane signs for like a 1-year, $3 million deal, your value for that type of contract is like you're maximizing that money. And you're probably getting more value than what Quinn is even going to give you on his deal. So I get it. People wouldn't love it, but you'll sell a lot of jerseys. You'll get a lot of production. And I think in some ways the Detroit Red Wings players talked up Kane very highly, the young guys in Detroit. So I don't think that would be a negative. In many ways, I think that might actually be a positive for a lot of the young players to see a future Hall of Famer icon. Like, let's be real. Kane isn't just a really good player. He's an icon. He is one of the best players of
American-born, one of the best ever USA.
Mount Rushmore of American-born hockey players. Yep. You have an opportunity to sign him, build off of what you're doing. I think if you get a cheap contract, it's worth the risk.
Yeah. I got a question for both of you guys, too, if I could. Armchair GM, I have to do it. It's been too much fun to talk about this. So for both of you guys, Mike, you're the guest. If you can, you can go first. 2-part question. One, we actually had this question I asked you, and we're going to roll back to it. The three horsemen, the young guys, rank your rank as far as like who do you see as most valuable? It's probably a different question of maybe who you see as a first-line center because we've had a glimpse of one of those guys in the past. But what is your rank on like those three, the hierarchy? And then if you were going to finish off the offseason and moves as the GM, what moves are you making? Let us know.
All right, I'll start with the three young prospects, and I'll rank them for two different things. One, where do I think they're going to be talent-wise in careers? I think Helenius 1, Oslin 2, Kulich 3.
Okay.
2, if you asked me what do I think the ceilings are, I think Kulich has the highest ceiling. Then I would go Helenius and Oslin. Here's the thing. I think Kulich has the highest ceiling, but I also think he's the least likely to reach where he's going to go. Gotcha. I think Helenius right now seems like the safest of the three guys. He just turned 20 years old, walked into a playoff series.
He's a dog.
One of the most effective players.
And then goes and wins the World Hockey Championship.
So I think Helenius has the highest, is going to be the safest of the three. And they said he was pro ready when he was 18 years old. Right. And then I think Oslin is going to be the safest of the three. This is what I would say. People need to calm their expectations of Noah Oslin. Mm-hmm. He's a good player. He had 27 points, I believe, in 60 games last year. Yeah. He's 22 years old. This is not some 19-year-old, 20-year-old like Benson or Kulich or Helenius that has been right away ready for the pros. He was a 16th overall pick, I believe. He spent years overseas in Europe developing his game, playing against grown men. So he has a little bit more experience going up against men than some of these other guys. I think Oslin's going to be a solid pro. A good two-way game. I just don't see him being like a 70, 80 point player. And if he ends up developing to be that great, people were acting like in the playoffs, like, oh my God, how are the Sabres going to win without Noah Oslin? I don't know. Right. Like, how are they winning before they had Noah Oslin? Right.
They were without him well into
actually they weren't winning. Well. They weren't really winning without him, so I guess that was a fair question. But
yeah, they were without him, I think, for at least like 10 or 15 games going into the playoffs.
I just want people like to realize it's like, yeah, we thought the same stuff about Peterka, Quinn, and Cousins. Right. So we gotta be a little bit like Quinn was a no doubter. Like I'll put stats up. This is a crazy one. Mm-hmm. Jack Quinn, I think his last year in Rochester had something like 67 points in like 46 games or something. He had like 27 goals in 46 games. Like Jack Quinn, if you looked at his year in Rochester, you're like, this guy's gonna be a 40 goal scorer in like 3 years. He's 24 years old right now, and we're happy he got to 20. Like, so it's one of those things like let's have some patience. Like Helenius last year, he looked great in the playoffs. He had a great year in Rochester. Played 9 regular season games, had 4 points, had 3 points in one of those games, which means in the other 8 regular season games, he had 1 point. It's Montreal is a very lackadaisical defensive team. It played to Helenius's advantage coming into that series.
Right.
And in a small sample size, he stepped up. But what makes the NHL so challenging is you're playing now 84 games.
Right.
How does a 20-year-old adapt to that type of schedule? Not playing in the American Hockey League with some inferior talent, but against the best in the world. And I would say this. People are acting like Helenius is going to get 60 points this year. I think it's more likely Helenius gets 30 to 35 points this year. Mm-hmm. So like we talk about Zach Benson. Zach Benson is an animal. He hasn't even touched 50 points in the NHL yet. So
right.
I just think 23, 24 is when you really take those big jumps. Mm-hmm. We're asking a lot for guys that are 20, 21, and 22 to do that.
Which is kind of like the crux of what we were getting at here, because I liked how you ranked them there, but just based on, again, maybe it's just the hype that they're giving him, but even just from previous resume that he has also, I think they genuinely rank Kulich to be their top guy. And I personally think he's ranked number 1 as far as the hierarchy goes, despite having the blood clot. I mean, he was playing on the first line along with Tage on one of his wings.
That might be the plan still.
And it very well could be the plan.
He's healthy.
Like, that's the scary thing, though. Like, because like we don't even know what Kulich is at this point in time. Like it's not like
some weight to lose.
Last year prior to the blood clots, he was very okay, man.
He looked okay up there with them guys.
And here's the other thing: he started really coming on. It was after they basically folded it in at that point. Like they were very much out of the playoff race. Like they were giving him his time up there. Like were they producing? Yeah, but it was just like it was one of those all for nothing moments there. So, but like I was saying, Mike, the crux of what what we're getting at here is: are these 3, Kulich, Helenius, Östlund, all untouchable? Because I feel like you can't think this all the time, because development is not going to be linear or the same for all 3 of these. And like we've been alluding to this entire episode, counting on these 3 guys to just magically be the cure-all for the offense and having somebody replace Alex Tuck in one capacity or having Josh Doan step in on the penalty kill more, I think it's some Kevin Adams-like thinking. Like, say what you will about how he handled some drafts. That I think that's more Jerry Fortin than anything. But just as far as counting on that and just let's wait for the future to come and just all of what we're doing and just coming in a big grand full circle here, there's no way they can just feel that all these guys are absolutely untouchable.
It's one of those where you always believe in your prospects more than you should. The math would say this: you probably got a 1 in 3 chance. 1 out of 3 of them is probably going to turn into a really good player. Probably. Right. 1 out of 3 of them probably is not going to turn into much at the NHL level, and maybe one of them finishes in the middle. Now, if you hit on all 3, awesome. That's amazing drafting. But it wasn't like these guys were can't miss prospects. Helenius, I think, was 14th. Austin was
mid-round, late round.
Kulich was at the end,
28. And I would say this: I don't think they should all be untouchable, but that might be the situation that the Sabres currently envision themselves. And this is also the tough part when you're talking about projections. You always think about what's their ceiling. You're never thinking, well, what's their floor? Right. When Dylan Cousins was coming into the league, people were talking about this is going to be a gritty 2-way player who's going to be good on both sides of the ice, probably 60 to 65 point potential, but he's going to be sound defensively and he's going to get you. He'll be able to take draws into your own zone and do a lot of stuff like this. Well, guess what? Dylan Cousins is absolutely abysmal defensively, and he's a good offensive player, but his defensive game never developed. But if I told you right now that Noah Östlund or Kulich would turn into a Dylan Cousins in 3 years, most people across the league would say that's a really good development for that player. To get 30 goal potential, 60 plus point potential, most people would take that. But Sabres fans, I think right now would turn that down, which tells me expectations of Sabres fans with these prospects is too high. It's too elevated. And that's the tough part. Like if you said right now that Konsta Helenius would be JJ Peterka, there'd probably be a lot of fans turning that down, knowing that Peterka is going to get you like 25 to 30 goals a year. Like the fact
and maybe traded after a year.
Right.
So like this is the very difficult part. People are choosing to buy in because we're coming off a great year. A lot of people just are invested. They're invested in the team again, and they want to believe. But I was saying for the entire time they had Cousins, Peterka, Quinn, get veterans, get solid goal scorers, and other people that you can supplement the lineup. You even think about Matt Savoy for Ryan McLeod. Matt Savoy might be a great player in the league one day. He's already developing at a good pace. He looks like he's going to be really good. I do that trade for Ryan McLeod 100 out of 100 times because that's what the Sabres needed right then. And without Ryan McLeod last year and the year before, they're not winning at the rate. And it's funny because there's people that are saying Ryan McLeod is coming off a bad season. I'm like,
well, he had a suspect playoff, but he was great all year.
It's
essential on the penalty kill.
100%.
I'll just say this. I often, with the Bills, I'm normally on the same page as most Bills fans. The Sabres, I think there's sometimes player evaluations that just they don't line up. When Byram was acquired, didn't agree with anybody on his value. I saw fit. The Sabres obviously saw fit. It worked out. I've been higher on Jack Quinn than most Sabres fans. I think that there's certain guys. A Ryan McLeod move always made sense. A Zucker move made sense for a veteran leadership person that is a little bit gritty. And I would say this. I was all for trading Dylan Cousins. I thought that was the first move where I was like, shit, Lindy is finally going to do what he needs to do to turn this around. No more of these entitled kids not listening to the coach, doing whatever the hell they want. I said it at a podcast shortly after that this was the first move to change the culture. And I'm
100%. Nailed it.
That's the type of stuff that matters. So we'll see. There's a lot of without knowing Hellebuck and Kane, it's hard to evaluate this team. I'll say this: if they get Hellebuck and Kane, I'm projecting 100 points, and they're making the playoffs.
We'll give them an incomplete right now. We'll follow up in a couple.
We'll see in the next. Hopefully, we see because if this is the lineup in the regular season, I think they're cut line.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. All right, just as we're kind of wrapping things up, we're about an hour and a half in, well over 950 viewers. Thank you to everybody that's tuning in. But one segment we always like to do, just to kind of change it up as opposed to just like purely all sports and things for that, we do a grind my gears or give them their flowers segment. And that's for like if anything's just driving you absolutely batshit crazy that you just like is totally something that like is you just can't possibly think that like why is the thing continuing to happen to me or things of that nature, or you give somebody or something their flowers just because something or someone you really enjoy in life right now, you just want to make sure they get their credit where credit is due. So because it's summertime, many know I'm a school teacher for my full-time gig. I have a little bit of extra time in the summer. I've actually picked up a book recently, and it is a hell of a series. It's Dungeon Crawler Carl, recommended to me by a coworker. If you're into like that sci-fi series type of stuff, very well written, very a lot of wit, a lot of good humor sprinkled throughout. Like very much written like with gamers in mind. I'm very much a gamer just as a hobby as well when I have the opportunity and time to do so. But Dungeon Crawler Carl is a series I want to give my flowers to that book series right now, just because it's apparently turning into a TV show, and I can see why. Highly entertaining. I just want to kind of start off on that. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm a little bit more than halfway through that first book, and I could not recommend it more, just as something to kind of be away from sports at that point in time. So, Mike, how about you? Is there anything driving you absolutely nuts or crazy right now that you just like want to like vent and get off your chest? Joe Marino had a vendetta against Home Depot. We have a lot of other different things come up from our other guests in the past. I know Liz Hood out of Winnipeg Sports Talk, she couldn't get about how Winnipeg drivers just handle roundabouts, things of that nature. Or, again, are you looking to give somebody or something props at this point?
Well, right now it's the heart of summer. I'm really not doing much in my life outside of going in the pool and occasionally grilling and enjoying the nice weather. I'll say one thing that grinds my gears, and I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite by saying this. What grinds my gears is just how negative people are on social media, just in general. And I'm not just talking the Bills stuff and Sabres stuff, but I just need people to be a little bit more logical, a little bit better at like connecting dots. And I'll just connect one quick thing to it. The Bills have ECC right next to their new stadium. And I have seen so many people over the last 6 months tell me they're not going to develop it. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that because they haven't done anything in the last 50 years. Well, you know what grinds my gears? People not understanding that ECC had to stop classes first before they could auction it off. And then everybody thinks ECC is a town of Orchard Park property. It's a town of Hamburg property. Yeah. So what grinds my gears is people that just freak out about stuff, yell about things, and they can't even get the first fact of the matter correct. So as a former journalist, people, before you yell into the clouds and complain about everything on social media, can we just do an ounce of research, like maybe a Google search, before we just complain about everything? And I know I'm complaining about people complaining, which makes me a hypocrite. But for my sanity, just
check your facts.
A little bit of checking the facts goes a long way.
Hey, could not agree more on that one, just because, again, having the right information is key. Sean, how about you?
Man, I was thinking about it. I don't really have any gears to grind. Everything's been pretty peachy keen in my life, so I'll give some flowers and shameless plug. I want to give some flowers to our guests for Mafia Con, if I may, Chris Maz. Am I allowed to announce who we got?
Sure, why not? Go for it.
So at Mafia Con, a week from Saturday, coming up in Buffalo, we'll be at the Seneca Tower. We're going to have two guests on. We have Abigail Lee, which is going to talk about her clothing, featured at all the local Tops locations all over Western New York and beyond. So that'll be really cool to get with her. And then also former Bill and your favorite, the hybrid, Marcus Dowden, will be live in location with me. I'm actually flying him out. I might fly with him. So just to make sure that he makes it on time. But for those of you that may not remember, we had Mookie Hawkins last year as our guest. And Marcus was actually the one, we talked about this, that introduced myself with Mookie. So we felt it was only fitting to have him come on. And we're going to talk about a bunch of cool stuff, what has going on post-career. So it's going to be a great time. Hope to see everybody out there.
And obviously plenty of Bills sprinkled into there as well when we do have Abigail on, and having Marcus be a part of that as well. He was definitely one of the drought era Bills, but he I know still follows the team pretty avidly. I think that was one of his longer stops that he had. But at the same time, we're looking forward to that huge event with both of them being able to join us. And more importantly, as we're just kind of wrapping things up, thanks to, again, now we're at near right around that 1,000 viewer mark. So again, Mike, thanks to you for coming on. Most importantly, for just giving us your insights on awesome. All things with Bills and Sabres coming up this for both seasons, essentially, because we are in the dead of off season for both for at least a few more weeks. But again, really appreciate your time, Mike.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Great time talking Bills and Sabres, and let's hope that the Sabres are able to make a move or two and that the Bills continue going in the right direction.
Of course. Just as a couple more things, Mike, I know we're hinting at a few things to talk about what Trainwreck is cooking at this point beyond Mafia Con, but tell the people, give yourself a plug where they can find you and what maybe some cool things you have upcoming.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mike_Bundt. A lot of Bills and Sabres takes there. You can also find me on TikTok and Instagram. I'll have stuff on both of those as well. On the Trainwreck side of things, a lot happening right now. Our Bills podcast, Pay the Bills, is currently going through a rebrand. So we'll be having an announcement in the next couple weeks about the new name that we're going to be switching to. So we already got some new graphics and things to go along with that. Me and AJ Sobalski, who is a great guy, used to be with the Batavia Daily News as a sports reporter there, and a lot of good insight with him, Carson Hayek, overall on our Pay the Bills podcast. And then We'll see about Bill's training camp. I was able to cover it the last couple years. We're still waiting to hear back from the Bills on that. So nothing definitive, but we're hoping to be there for at least a few practices. And if we're lucky, maybe even behind the scenes with some player access, hopefully.
Awesome stuff there, Mike. I know you guys have always had some fun stuff at training camp over the years. So here's hoping that those credentials come through for you guys. But for us, Shawnee V, any parting thoughts as we wrap things up before our next appearance at Mafia Con?
No, it's great to be back in the co-pilot seat with you. I was off for a little bit, traveling all month. So Buffalo is going to be right in the middle of the month in July in the mix. So I ain't going to be home much in July. I think 3 days out of the whole month. So, but I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
Hey, you've lived that nomad lifestyle all along. But anyway, thanks, folks, for tuning in. Thank you, Mike, once more. As we said, you'll hear next from us at Mafia Con Saturday, July 18th. Can't wait to see you there. And as always, let's go, Buffalo.
Let's go, Buffalo.
All right, take care, y'all.